How's up, y'all? It's popping this D. About to react to this video about Mort. This is OnlyFans horror story animated. It's 3 of them, but that's what we're not about to do. Is watch all 3 because this video is almost 30 minutes. So we're gonna watch the first one. It says Psycho Subscriber. Yeah. Anyway, let's see this OnlyFans horror story though. Let's watch.
It was the summer of last year, and I was a broke college student. My parents were happy to help with paying for the education, but my university was in an urban and rather upscale area. So despite the fact that most of my tuition was covered, I was still struggling to get by living costs. Food, clothes, and utilities were all very expensive. I worked long and hard hours at a local coffee shop as a barista, but this was starting to interfere with my education. I majored in biotechnology, which was a very difficult and competitive field to study at my school. The classes I had to take were extremely difficult and time-consuming. Sometimes I would stay up for several days together in order to balance out studying, attending lectures, and going to work. But hey, someone had to pay for bus passes, and someone had to pay for my groceries. I didn't want to have to sacrifice my grades and future career opportunities solely due to the fact that I needed money right now. The worst part of all this was that I barely had a life of my own. With midterms coming up and finals a few weeks after that, hanging out with friends or just having fun in general really wasn't an option. I needed to make a lot of money fast and quick, something I could preferably do in the comfort of my own dorm. My mind immediately went to online jobs, but none of them seemed legitimate. Most of them required little time, but they obviously paid a little money. I asked an upperclassman friend of mine, and she suggested a couple things. At first, we were thinking of getting a sugar daddy, but that requires sometimes meeting those creepy old men in person, which I wasn't a huge fan of. But then my friend suggested selling a bit more.
By the way, I get sugar daddy offers quite a bit, and they're always very low. If you gonna offer me some money, first of all, I ain't saying that I'm gonna accept, but I wouldn't offer me no fucking few $1,000s a month. What am I supposed to do with that? I can't even pay my rent with that. So what?
Revealing photos of myself online. She claimed that she and many other people she knew had done it loads of times, and you don't even need to show your face or that much of your body. People just pay ridiculous amounts of money even for slightly lewd photos. And considering that my roommate had just moved out with her boyfriend, I figured that this might be my best option. I had this room all to myself, and there was really no harm in doing this at this point. I immediately signed up as an OnlyFans creator. OnlyFans seem to be the most credible and popular of these types of websites. They also seem to be the safest and are very liberal with how much profit the creators get to keep. Pretty much every other girl on my campus has one in their Instagram bio anyway, so I figured there's really no harm in trying, and have too many other options anyways. It was a lot easier than I thought getting started. Rather young woman, and I considered myself to have a decent body. I saved up for a cheap but effective ring light off Amazon, and my smartphone had a good enough camera anyways. I started out by taking a profile picture. Nothing above my chin was shown. It was me posing all cute with only my underwear on. I bought a promotion from a rather large Twitter page for my OnlyFans, and it seemed to be working. I had already gotten a few subscribers and fans. I wasn't in the top 1% or anything, but my initial investments in the light and promotion were all paid off within a few days. I even took the following week off of work. I eventually went ahead and took the next few weeks of work off. I wanted to study for my midterms, and at this point OnlyFans seemed to be paying the bills pretty well. My audience seemed to be a mixture of mostly men, both old and young. But one day, as I was messaging a few fans, I noticed a DM request with an unusually high payment amount. Sure, a lot of these guys had their own weird kinks and would pay a surprising amount of money just to see my feet sometimes, but this was even stranger. I got a direct message from someone with the username John_Doe, and he was willing to pay $100 just for a photo of me smiling. I initially thought he had added an extra zero by accident, so I messaged him back just to make sure that he resends the request with the right amount. But the man was serious. He wanted to see a photo of me smiling for $100. I took a selfie immediately and sent it to him. He paid the amount in full. We kept messaging back and forth. He wanted to see a video of my full body from the neck down. I did, and he paid about $50. He wanted to see a photo of my hands, and I sent those to him as well. After paying unusually high amounts for rather weird photos, he proceeded to ask rather deep and odd questions. Started with things like, how old are you and are you single? And transitioned to much creepier things like, how many partners have you had in the past? Are you living with family? Do you live alone? Are you sexually active as of now? I got extremely weirded out by this, but I didn't want to be rude to the man. After all, he is a really big tipper. But eventually, the man started asking questions like, what STDs do I have? And at this point, I just quit the chat. I continued with my night and went to sleep not thinking much of
The
it.
street you
There
live
are
on.
plenty of weirdos online, and this man could have just been another one of them. That next day, I had just gotten home from class. The bus was a bit late, and so was I. I opened up my laptop in order to start my night job, if you will, and noticed my OnlyFans had a series of unread messages from John_Doe, the same weirdo from last night. I was hesitant to open them at first, but I did. It was a series of manic, crazy messages. It started off with him offering large sums of money just to talk to me, and then it transitioned to him getting very aggressive and making threats to track me down and attack me just because I ignored him. I had finally had enough. I reported the man to OnlyFans and blocked him. No amount of money was worth his attention, and I eventually just called it a night. I never heard back from John_Doe those next few days. Things went on considerably normal until one afternoon. It was around 4 p.m. and I was in my apartment. I was in the kitchen and I needed some fresh air, so I went outside my balcony to take a few deep breaths. But as I surveyed around the view, I noticed one of my neighbors on their balcony. This obviously wasn't particularly weird, but I noticed he was staring right at my building. It was an old man, looking at me in a somewhat intense or anxious manner. I waved to him as a friendly gesture, but received no reply. That's weird, I thought, but then things got even weirder. The man pulled out a pair of binoculars and stared at me, and then proceeded to scan up and down my building with his binoculars. I was extremely unsettled by this. It was like he was looking for someone. Could it be me? Why would this man be spying on me? I went back inside and tried to shake it off, but then it hit me. John_Doe from the last night. Could this be the man leaving me those messages? Could that creepy OnlyFans man be living right across from me? I knew I didn't have any time to waste, and I immediately reported him to my building. My building security said that they talked to the man and couldn't find any significant enough evidence that the man was doing anything wrong. They even tried telling the police as well, but they dropped the case because, well, they had nothing to report on either. I was very irritated by this, but I never saw the man peeping at me anymore, so I figured he got the message. But one day, I was walking back from a grocery trip. I was only a couple blocks away from my apartment building, and it was mid-evening. It was getting a bit dark, but there were streetlights and my apartment complex was in a rather nice area. Deep down, I knew this was a dumb decision to make because I was a young woman, but hell, I just wanted some food. But as I was walking, I felt watched. Got this weird sense that there were a pair of eyes glued onto me as I was walking down the street.
Why are you walking like
the
this?
stairs to my apartment building were only a few blocks away, but as I got more and more creeped out, the distance seemed to get longer and longer. Steadily surveyed my surroundings and noticed the old man across the street. Eyes locked onto me.
Hell no.
I couldn't believe it. The man was back at
He's
it.
not gonna catch you
I started
for
trying to walk a little faster and heard footsteps behind me. The quicker my footsteps got, the quicker the old man's did as well. At this point, it was a speed walking race with the old man and I. At that point, I started sprinting. I wasn't the fastest runner in the world, but I was much younger than the man. I could hopefully outpace him. Quickly darted around a corner and stood there and waited. I was behind a bus stop and essentially was hiding for my life at this point. I knew I had to try going directly to the police this time, but I needed to get to my apartment or to safety first. Who knew what this man would do to me, especially considering he was the one leaving those crazy messages on my OnlyFans.
How you know?
But to my surprise, a young man noticed me. "You okay, ma'am?"
Oh, that's
the man
him.
asked. The man was around my age, only a tad bit older maybe. He was casually dressed and quite good looking. "Yeah, it's just the man following you," he interrupted. I don't know what to do. I'm scared he'll step out and find me," I said. "Hey, don't worry. I can walk you to your apartment, if that makes you feel a bit better," the man said. I was a bit sketched out at first, obviously, but I accepted the offer. I was afraid for my life at this point, and any help I could get was worth it. The man seemed like a gentleman, and he genuinely wanted to walk me to my apartment building. We chatted a bit about our lives as we were walking, and he didn't really say much about his. The young man went by Jay, and he seemed to be a really nice guy. But as we were getting to my apartment building, there was an old van in the driveway that was never usually there. I had no idea what this random new vehicle was doing in our neighborhood at that time of day, but I just focused on getting to my door. But that's when I heard yelling behind me. "Wait! Wait!" It was the old man from before, and he was running after me, trying to get my attention. But before I could even react or comprehend what was going on, I felt Jay's hand latch onto my shoulders. He threw me into the oddly placed van. I didn't even have time to scream or react. He slammed the door shut and quickly started driving off. I tried my hardest to scream for help and get out of the van, but the back had no windows or access to the front seat. It was all padded down with wooden panels. I couldn't believe it. Jay was John_Doe. Jay was the one following me. But what did that mean for the old man? My thought was interrupted by the van coming to a sudden halt. Jay quickly yanked open the back door. The look in his eyes were completely different from when he walked me home. He had this crazed look on his face, almost like he was a different person altogether. He yanked me out of the van after taping my mouth shut and blindfolding me. Jay was pretty tall, and I'm not exactly the strongest person in the world, so I couldn't even resist. He dragged me into a building. I had no idea where I was, and I was freaking out. As he left me in what seemed to be a basement, he started telling me all the awful things he'd do to me and how I shouldn't have ignored him on OnlyFans. He walked away, and I sat there for what could have been only a few minutes, but felt like hours. I had given up all hope. Was this really it? Was this how my life was gonna end? My entire life was flashing back before my eyes. But suddenly, I heard sirens outside. Could it really be the police? Was it just an ambulance or fire truck passing by? Soon, I heard a loud yelling and pounding on the front door, followed by, "Police search warrant! Step out with your hands above your head!" There was a long, intense pause, followed by more commotion. After several minutes of rustling and more yelling upstairs, my blindfold and tape were removed from my mouth. It was an officer. They took me to the police station and asked me some questions about Jay. I explained to them the entirety of the OnlyFans situation and showed them screenshots. It turns out the man was mentally ill but was somehow released from the asylum. I asked the police how they found me and they explained everything. It turns out the old man I suspected from before was actually trying to help me. According to the police, Jay had somehow managed to track my IP address through OnlyFans and found out where I lived. He happened to live pretty close by to me, and CCTV footage showed Jay coming to my apartment and analyzing my path home from the same van. The old man was looking through binoculars because he wanted to know why there was a random new vehicle in the neighborhood and what it was doing by my building. It turns out he was following me that day in order to make sure I went home safe. He was very, very suspicious of Jay in the van. He was suspecting that Jay would somehow do something to me, but by the time he actually found out, it was too late. The old man was the one who got the van's plate number on camera and reported it to the police immediately. The police used traffic cameras and records in order to find out where the van was going and where it could end up. As soon as I got home, I explained to my friends what happened, and I deleted my entire OnlyFans account right after that. I soon went back to work at my cafe and tried to resume my normal life. It's been about a year since that happened, and the old man moved out since. He's now at a senior care center nearby, and while we rarely are in contact, we never ever mention Jay or the incident.
Girl, he saved your life. You better go there and give him some conversation or flash him a titty or something. Just joking. How the fuck would he have gotten her IP address? I'm pretty sure OnlyFans has some very sophisticated software in place to avoid things like this, because otherwise a lot of people wouldn't even want to be on OnlyFans if it was this much of a security issue. You feel me? So I don't know if I believe that, because everybody will be getting tracked. You know how many people on OnlyFans? You know how many big celebrities are on there? Like, they will be getting tracked left and right, and I haven't heard not one story like this. And just the way it was set up, it just sounds too, like, movie-like. So I don't believe the story at all, but it still was pretty entertaining. The animations were good for the most part, but they were just moving in very awkward ways that were funny sometimes. But anyway, this was a really good story, fake or not. It was entertaining. Y'all let me know what y'all thought, though. Let me know what other videos you want me to watch, and I'll see y'all the next one.